The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Yes, we are in the teeth of the football season, but baseball season really goes on as we've got free agency coming up and postseason awards have been coming out. Orioles collecting a couple of them. Joe Posnanski's new book is Why We Love Baseball, A History in 50 Moments. And about a week and a half ago, Joe did a book signing at the Jewish Community Center here in Rockville and interviewed him as part of it and really enjoyed it. And looked like you sold a lot of books there, Joe, right?
I think we sold a lot of books. It was that was such a blast being there with you. It was really a lot of fun.
It was fun, and Joe has written other books, including Paterno. He even wrote one about Harry Houdini. But baseball seems to be your first love. Why such a love affair with baseball?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I grew up in Cleveland, so obviously there was football everywhere, and that was what everybody loved, and I did too. But baseball for me, it's just been ever since I was a kid. I mean, I think like most people, got it from my parents, from my dad specifically, and just grew up with it. It was a sport I played. It was the sport that I sort of seemed to understand earliest, and it's been like that ever since. And I think part of me certainly is just sort of fits that baseball thing. I love history. I love to connect to the past, and I think baseball probably more than any other sport sort of relies on history and connecting to the past.
The subtitle is A History in 50 Moments. There are many more moments than that, and to give you kind of a broad picture of it, it's a book of just great little stories. And if you spent time around baseball people, particularly older people, they all have stories. So for me, I compared it to the Righteous Brothers' Rock and Roll Heaven. For me, it was like sitting around listening to stories from people of the past of the incredible things that have happened. Was that kind of your intent in the way you put the book together?
It really was. It's something that on this tour, I've been on this tour now for about 10 weeks, and it's been amazing, for being all over. And everywhere I go, everybody's got stories, baseball stories. They have to share with me. They want to share with me things that they experienced, things that they did themselves, pieces of memorabilia they want to share. I just think that's such a big part of baseball, and we talked about this when I was there. I mean, right now I'm writing a football book along the same lines, and it's so different. It's looking back at football moments and football history. It has its own incredible charms and all of that, but it's not the same as far as when it just these stories, little stories, like you say. So many of these are obviously big moments, and Willie Mays' catch and Kirk Gibson's home run and the called shot by Babe Ruth and so on. But so many of them are just these little moments that somehow make baseball really special.
I'm sure you've been to both of them as well. You can see the Pro Football Hall of Fame in a day easily. Yeah. You could spend 3-4 days at the Baseball Hall of Fame and not really see everything. It's a little older, but still, I think there's more things that people care about associated with baseball than maybe football. Would you agree?
I think in some ways, yes. I mean, certainly what we associate in football is today, next week. I mean, the way we get into games in football is much more intense. But you're 100% right. I grew up in Cleveland, and it seems like every year our school trip was going to Canton to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And even as a gigantic football fan, like it stopped being interesting after a little while. It's like, hey, let me see, let me look at these fantastic finishes, and okay, that's kind of cool. But it's like, all right, so there's Sammy Baugh's helmet, and there's Don Hudson's cleats or whatever, and it's like, all right, that doesn't mean the same thing to us that it is to see Babe Ruth's bat or Lou Gehrig's glove or something like that. It's just different when you look at the history.
It is, and we're talking to Joe Posnanski. His book is Why We Love Baseball, and I want to get to the story that Joe told of why he wrote the book. But you put out the word memorabilia, and this, I don't know if this is breaking news or anything, but I thought this was so cool. Geddy Lee, the lead singer from Rush, is selling his memorabilia, and he's got like tons and tons of it. Loves baseball, but one of the things that he's selling, he's got a baseball signed by all four Beatles when they made their Shea Stadium appearance in 1964. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, it's got to be a one-of-a-kind item. How many baseballs would they have signed that night? And given the fact that two of the Beatles are gone, I mean, Joe, that's got to be a priceless item, don't you think?
Priceless. Let me think about this. I mean, 1964, I mean, this would have been true anyway, anytime. How many of those Beatles even knew what a baseball was? You know what I mean? I mean, like that's not what they grew up with. They've just announced that they're actually publishing Why We Love Baseball in the UK, which is really exciting for me. But it's like that's not a lot of baseball going on in the UK. So that's what an incredible thing. But what an incredible guy Geddy Lee is. You know, I've been aware of him and his memorabilia for a while because he donated several hundred baseballs signed by Negro Leaguers to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City. They've got a whole section that's just the Geddy Lee baseball section in that museum. And I mean, just incredibly cool. What a cool guy. And and the more you read about him, you know, he's got a book out now, and the more you read about him and hear from him, you realize that, you know, as a pretty legendary rock and roll guy, he really has his head on straight when it comes to so many things.
Yeah,
you know?
no question. He's got, by the way, both of the baseballs from Johnny Vandermeer's no-hitters.
He's like his own Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have money, but it's also, you know, there's work involved in tracking those things down too, which is not an easy thing to do. All right, when we were talking and we got around, it took a while to get around to this. I was not aware of this, but you have a really, I think, poignant story of why you decided to write this book. Go ahead and tell it.
Well, for me, it was I was so blown away by the story that people were telling me after the Baseball 100 came out. So the Baseball 100 came out a couple of years ago. I loved writing it, but I didn't expect it to be this big thing. You know, it's a huge baseball book counting down the 100 greatest players. It's 870 pages. And then when that thing became a bestseller and really captured people's imaginations, I just started hearing from people, one after another, telling me their baseball story. And people, it was so important for people to tell me how baseball connected them to their parents or you know, they think about their childhood or you know, it was beautiful. People reading the stories to their kids at night or reading them to their spouse who was blind in one case. I mean, it was just these beautiful stories. And for me, I thought I got to write a book called Why We Love Baseball. And I didn't know what it was going to be when I started. I just knew that I was going to call it Why We Love Baseball. And it developed into this thing where, because of all of these stories, that's what I thought the book had to be. It had to be stories, it had to be moments, these things that we carry with us, and that's where it began.
And then there was the story about the girl who had pitched 2 no-hitters in was it Little League that she did it? And you would go ahead.
No, that was what gave the book heart. Her name is Chelsea Baker. She threw 2 no-hitters as an 11-year-old in Florida, and I didn't know anything about her. She's in the Hall of Fame. Her jersey's in the Hall of Fame, and so I looked her up, talked to her. She told me these, you know, the story of how she learned the knuckleball from Joe Niekro. That's basically how she threw the no-hitter was with this knuckleball. And then she gave up the game, and she was telling me, I said, well, do you ever think about baseball anymore? And she said, you know, every now and again, I'll pull my glove down from the shelf, and I'll put it on, and I'll pound my fist in it. And she said, I know you can hear the sound.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought, yeah, that's what I want this book to be. If I could pull that off and make this book so you can hear the sound of somebody, of you or somebody pounding their fist in a baseball glove, then I know I'll have pulled it off.
Do you ever, and I still have my Carl Yastrzemski Triple Crown glove from when I was a kid. It's been restrung,
Sure.
and I've tried to keep it alive with Needs Foot Oil. Do you ever from time to time just take it out and just smack the ball into the glove just to, because you like baseball?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. And every now and again, I've got a friend in the neighborhood, actually a sportswriter in the neighborhood who every now and again will just pull out our gloves and play catch.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's such a great thing. I mean, it's like you're never too old to do that, and it's really great. And anything you can do, I think, for me to connect to the game a little bit more is really fun.
You used the term play catch. You didn't say have a catch. And that is that's one of the real cool stories about Field of Dreams, that they knew enough to use that term, have a catch, when he sees his dad. And apparently it's an Eastern thing, Joe, from what I understand, that people west of the Mississippi said play catch, and people in the East say have a catch.
Yeah, I remember saying have a catch growing up in Cleveland. I remember that very much. But, look, it's a little bit interchangeable. But I do think from sort of the poetic nature of what Field of Dreams is, have a catch really works.
Yeah, it absolutely works. A couple of stories. First of all, the most mind-blowing story for me, and we did the anniversary of this on the show a few weeks ago, and that is the Al Gianfrido catch in the 1947 World Series, and it's famous for the Red Barber call where he goes back. That led to Chris Berman adopting that. But he made it sound like this was Gianfrido, who really didn't have much of a career, and that was the last game he ever played in the major leagues, making just an unbelievable, like a Willie Mays type of catch in the outfield. And then when you go to YouTube and you watch the video of it, you see Gianfrido 5, 6, 7 feet in front of the fence, and you're wondering what was the big deal about that? And you have the story of why this is the case. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy because for exactly what you said, I wasn't going to put it in the book because even though it's a very famous catch, and you talk about the Red Barber call, Odakta, and also DiMaggio kicking the dirt in frustration, I wasn't going to put it in, but it was like, it's so famous, I better look it up. And what I found was that the catch that's on YouTube, the one that we've seen a million times, is a recreation of the catch that they did actually before Game 7 of the World Series. They sent Al Gianfrido and a teammate out to the outfield because the newsreels didn't get it. They didn't get the catch. So they sent him out there so they could get a close-up of the catch and basically hit fungos to him and told him, do your best to pretend to be making that same catch. And the crowd was there because it's before Game 7 of the World Series. They told the crowd to go crazy when he makes the catch, which some fans do, and honestly, if you watch closely, some fans definitely do not. So it's really, really wild. I when I saw that and read several stories about them doing this recreation, I was blown away to the point where I was so scared to put it in because I'd never heard that. I mean, everybody plays that as if it is the catch, and it is not. Yeah,
I mean, I think in 1947 that they thought enough to do a recreation. You know what I mean? Like, video. It wasn't a video world then, but somebody had the foresight to say, we're going to want to preserve this on film, so let's recreate it. Amazing, isn't it?
Really amazing. Yeah. Really amazing.
Here's another one, and this I've never seen, but Joe says there is some video of this. Nolan Ryan, pitching for the Angels, 1973 against the Tigers, throws a no-hitter. Norm Cash comes up to the plate and hits with what?
Well, he steps to the plate with a table leg instead of a bat. He goes up to the plate with a table leg, and the umpire says to him, hey, you can't hit with that, and he turns to the umpire and says, I can't hit him with anything. He didn't actually swing with it. Like they made him throw it out and use a real bat. But he definitely, there is video of it. You could see him stepping to the plate. And what was crazy about that, you and I talked about it even that day in Rockville, nobody wrote about it at the time. Like this happened, and everybody was so focused on Nolan Ryan throwing a no-hitter nobody wrote about this table leg until like 3 weeks later. Like now, could you even imagine? I mean, like he'd be on the Today Show. Like everybody would be talking about it.
Oh yeah, be viral. Everybody would have a video on their phone of Norm Cash with the with the table leg. At the end of the book, Joe does the moments for each team. The one he chose for the Nationals is the Howie Kendrick home run that hit the foul pole in Game 7 in Houston, and also mentioning the Ryan Zimmerman walk-off home run in the first game at Nats Park. And I think it's good to separate, too, because the Howie Kendrick home run was in Houston, where most people saw it on TV, whereas some of us were lucky enough to be in the ballpark the night that Zimmerman hit his. What was, of all the teams that you did, what would you think? I guess you'd say the Bill Mazeroski home run. Would you say that for the Pirates, Game 7, or what? What would you say the biggest moment? Yeah.
Oh yeah. What I did was for that particular section, I did a poll of fans and asked fans to vote for their and I think Mazeroski's home run was nearly unanimous. There were certain teams that their moment, Joe Carter's home run, Mazeroski's home run, some others that they were pretty obvious. There was an obvious choice. The Nationals, I think, was somewhat split, and there were other moments besides for those two that you mentioned that were voted for. And I just think because the Nationals are relatively new, and I don't think anybody was going. I mean, a few people actually put in expose moments, but I didn't think that exactly fit the scene. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting when you look different teams. Most of the moments I was like, yeah, that makes sense, but some of the moments I was surprised that was the way the fans went. I think Kendrick and Zimmerman's moments, for exactly the reasons you said. I mean, I think Kendrick is clearly the most important moment in franchise history, but Zimmerman, is sort of that was the moment that sort of kicked the whole thing off, and it was at home, and there's a big difference whether it's home or on the road.
Yeah, absolutely, because, well, in that case, it's a walk-off, and Howie's was not, even though it was in the World Series, so that's a big part of it. As we've gone through some of these stories, and there's so many more, and there's more than 50 moments, this book is selling well. Could there be a sequel? Could there be 50 more moments down the road?
There might be. I mean, I'm doing a football book now, as I say. So that's sort of where my head is. There's a lot still, that you can do. That's the great thing about baseball history is there's so much, and there's so many different ways to go.
Yeah.
And there were lots and lots of moments that were left out of this book, as you would expect. I mean, there were just lots of moments that I started writing or I actually completed. That did not get into the book just because we squeezed as many as we could in there. So yeah, there's definitely a way to revisit this for sure.
Well, good luck with it. I'm sure it's off to a great start. Enjoyed it very much, and thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. That's Joe Posnanski. And again, the book is Why We Love Baseball, A History in 50 Moments. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He is a great sports writer, and he said he was on the Today Show, and he was introduced as the greatest living sports writer, and he just shook his head to nod. And I don't think you could make much of an argument. Certainly the greatest working sports writer right now, and the book is really good. I really enjoyed it, and it's good bathroom reading too, because none of the stories are connected, so you can just sort of flip through and find what you want, and takes care of business as you take care of business. How about that?